Welcome to the weekly 30/30 ASX trading list. These are the 30 best momentum companies, being the strongest quarterly movers, as well as this week's 30 LaunchPad stocks. Fueled up and poised, ready to run. Gary Glover has scanned the list and grabbed his favourites of the week. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, it's great, Chris. Yeah, I like the idea of the LaunchPad. That's nice. That's good terminology. I like that.
It's sort of a lot of the stocks that you've been surfacing in that list of the weekly ones that we go through. They tend to be trawling out a bit of a bottom, and you might have picked some up this week when they've started to run quite hard. So it does seem like they're a rocket taking off, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, it's a good analogy. Sort of look now, kind of launching as well, because that's sort of often those sort of big 1 week moves is actually do. That's often how those sort of trends do launch. So it's I like it.
Right. Well, you've run through the list. You've got the momentum ones that we start off with first, and then we'll come into the LaunchPad stocks. Were there any charts that caught your eye out of these top 30 momentum companies over the last quarter?
Yeah, so the probably sort of 6 sort of jumped out at me in the quality of momentum, and the first one here was SRL, which is sort of stock that I hadn't sort of seen before, and that's sort of, I guess, a bit of a mixed metals bag here. But the thing I do like here is that, just after that sort of August low, we've sort of got high, low, high, low, high, low, just a series of high lows through here, which is pretty constructive. All the corrections are fairly uniform there, but in here that they started getting tighter. So this, we can see here that after this correction there, they've kind of sat on top almost, and then now we've sort of sat on top, or a little bit of spacing here between that low there. So just sort of getting some momentum there. The volume's not bad. The volume's obviously stronger. At the low there, some of the good up days have had some good volume behind it. So the beauty there is that each pullback is pretty light volume. So far this is sort of got some pretty good momentum, and trend starting to sort of move a lot more freely up. Pullbacks light volume. So yeah, so this one sort of does look quite good. When I sort of toggled out to the weekly as well, to show me that really this is sort of, it's almost, this is a really long consolidation here, so almost a bit of a base build. So yeah, potentially this one might have a few more legs. So the daily looks like it's sort of maybe getting up there, but when you toggle out to the weekly there, it does suggest maybe there's a bit more room in it. So that's one that's been running for a while here for the quarter, but does look pretty good still. The other one I thought was the EOS, was just because we've had that, I think we featured this one a couple of weeks ago, had that big volume move there, but then now we're, what I want to see is a little, ABC, a little, little correction there and hold the range there. So maybe holding that 20-day moving average will be, will be nice. If it can sort of hold that, I think it'll be quite constructive. But so far this has been pretty light volume, after a pretty high volume move. This so far has been pretty light volume. You look at the last couple of days heading down here. So kind of constructive, might need a bit more time, but that's one that on that quality momentum that I still like, still sort of watching.
Just on that one for a second, this is one that you picked up on a list a couple of weeks ago, was it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think it was probably on our sort of launch sort of stocks, basically sort of just had that really aggressive 1 week up off the low, good volume. That's what caught the eye. Yeah,
I think it was 10th of March it came up, and on the 17th of March as well. So it's a good pick, good one of yours there. What's
a big percentage move there, because that's 160 to 320. I mean, it doesn't look big on the chart there, but that's it's almost double in price. So that's a big move. So yeah. So that's why it's interesting here, just to sort of see. We want to see consolidation here now, and then that's probably the attraction there. Is that's a pretty big, decent move here. But, so sometimes you got to be patient here, as we sort of said with some of these stocks, waiting for the consolidate. Sometimes they can be sort of days, sometimes they can be weeks. So but you got to show patience here. You got to wait for the good setups here. The other one I quite like was RED, just because it's sort of been holding pretty firm. Again, it's just a really nice sort of, classic sort of left to right sort of, nice sort of strong trend here. And again, the thing that I sort of saw here was that we had a reasonable volume on this last sort of drive up here. and then we've had a really bit of a just a tight consolidation again. So again, just a higher low and another second higher low here. So volume's probably starting to wane a little bit. That's probably the only negative here the last couple of days, but it's still sort of got this sort of series of high lows. So that still remains sort of positive looking. And Silver Lake, obviously, again, it's had a pretty strong move here. I think we featured these gold stocks a while back there. I think, you know, they exploded off the lows pretty aggressively. But, you know, again, we're pulling, look at the pullback here. It's just really tight here, Chris. So even that sort of cooling off here is sort of remained pretty tight. So since that high, come back in the little ABC here, and it just hasn't really come back deep here. So it just seems to be sort of holding on pretty well. So yeah, normally you sort of see the dailies, you think, oh, maybe we're getting a little bit long in the tooth here, but just not seeing too much weakness on the pullbacks here. So yeah, what we saw here was, you know, we highlight this with gold stocks. We saw some pretty big volumes on this drive here. So you just want to see a little tight consolidation. So I don't know, sort of, you know, you get an impulsive rally, maybe a bit of a tightness there, or impulsive rally tightness, you know, just nice impulsive rally and a bit of tightness there. That's the sort of thing you want to see. So far so good there, but you just might see a bit more consolidation, but definitely showing sort of signs of strength there. The other one was a bit, we sort of, I think we had MGX there last week in that iron ore space. So Ioneer's had a nice little pop here as well. So some okay volume as well. To me, it's a bit risky sort of coming in here, but just showing the sector's still got some momentum here at the moment. So as we've seen in the past, sometimes they look like they're a little bit long in the tooth, but they managed to sort of keep holding on. They're strong. So yeah, as William O'Neill sort of said in the past, it's sometimes the stronger stocks can remain strong and the weaker stocks can remain weak for a lot longer than you think. So yeah, just got to keep that in mind. Last one on the list there, I thought was Nearmap there. So it's probably a stock that I haven't liked too much in the past there. You know, I worry about the low volume there, but I noticed it did have a gap up here on a pretty good update, pretty good result there. So still pretty strong downtrend on the way down here. So it'll be all about the reaction here from now on, but definitely one to put on the radar just because it's had a pretty decent pop here. Good fundamental trigger as well. So it'll all be about sort of watching the counter move here. Again, we'll be patient here waiting for the counter, but that's definitely one on my list as well.
Would that 140 level be quite critical? Seems so it was support and then resistance a few times. Would that be a critical point to hold?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, just the key things there, it's obviously, we look at this as being a downtrend here, lower high, just keep making lower highs all the way down and another lower high. So as soon as we break one lower high, that's a good sign. So obviously we're broken above that lower high there. So that's a positive sign there. And then breaking a second lower high is a really good sign as well. That's, sort of a couple of guys in the past have sort of taught me that, one's positive, but two is, it's usually real positive. And yeah, oftentimes you see a break of a high there, you might see a little flashback and then you go again and break a second one. That's usually quite positive. So seeing a few positive signs here, just didn't like the low volume in here. There is a litigation case actually still hanging over Nearmap. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. But I'll be curious to sort of see how that counter move happens in there. So definitely just sort of one to watch there.
Nice. And does this move you over to those LaunchPad stocks for this week?
It does. So going through your list there. So look, I saw there was a lot. Like normally it's sort of, I probably see about 10 that I like, and then I narrow it down to like 5 or 6. This time I probably saw 20 that sort of, it looked okay at first glance. And then once I sort of drilled in a bit deeper, I probably got it down to sort of, 6 or 8 sort of stocks there. But there was just a lot of stocks that really had these pops there. So similar to this for VHT. But the difference between this one and a lot of other ones, a lot of them were on really light volume. So it might have been, I don't know, just trying to find a rally here with light volume. Whereas this one's a bit more volume in this rally. So this one's definitely popped out of the range, taken gone above a previous little swing high there, but just just broken a few. I like to see it break above the 50-day moving average. It's a bit of a thing for me, and then sort of come back and congest on top of that. But good volume there from VHT, so some good early signs there. EOF is another one there, very, very small. So this is like a lot of stocks like this come up. So this is sort of one I just sort of show that it's had a little pop there, but it's really only been sort of short. So sometimes you get these sort of short pops and it can all fizz out. So this one's gone above one little high, but probably hasn't gone above two. So that sort of makes it not less attractive, but just seeing a lot of stocks sort of pop like this. But to me, I wouldn't touch this one yet, but just because it's sort of early days, they may not follow through. But again, Macmahon, I don't mind the sector here, mining services again, but again, we're pretty light volume and pretty small stock. So again, probably not one that's sort of going to excite me. This is probably more interesting just because it's a bit more impulsive, some good volume on the drive there. And again, we've sort of maybe come out of a bit of an ABC, pretty deep correction, now starting to sort of build here. And then I think once we sort of broke above that sort of lower high here, that's kind of a positive there. We've just sort of gone straight through it, which sometimes the strong stocks do. So that's interesting, TLG. That's in the battery and graphite area, so understandably sort of, but the sector's a bit late stage for me, but maybe this is just sort of some of the sort of the bottom dwellers coming in late, but yeah, just definitely sort of one to keep an eye on. GWA, again, it's a pretty strong trend. This is sort of typical of a lot of the stuff that we saw this week was just, having a bit of a move. Volume's okay here, but we're still in a pretty strong downtrend, Chris. So yeah, just saw plenty of these sort of type of signals there. That Nearmap was on the same list, so that was okay. One of the big stocks that actually stood out was actually TABCORP. And it looks pretty messy on the daily chart there. But if we went to our weekly, we can see here that off that sort of 2020 low, pretty impulsive rally, and then this has really been tight here. So look how, it's really from like 530 into 470. The stock's been held really tight there for quite a period of time, and now it's sort of punching through the upside. So technically, that's pretty strong signal actually. Quite a bullish there. So it's almost like your rectangle, your Davis box breaking out, and anyone following the news there on TABCORP yesterday, they announced the sort of demerger, basically going to sort of split the company up, so into different divisions, so potentially extracting a bit of value. So anyone who holds TABCORP now will own two companies in the future there, and oftentimes that can be seen in the past there when companies demerge, a bit like Woolworths and Endeavour, and there's been a few in the past there I've seen as well, tend to extract a bit of value in doing so. So that does look pretty interesting. TPG was another one there, but again, pretty light volume so far. On the daily, maybe a little bit more prominent, but yeah, not bad. So this looks quite good here, but look at the conviction in the rally here, just not too much here. So really just got to go through, there's really lots of stocks that look like this week, but you really have to sort of weed through and look for volume there. One that did pop out was sort of Bubs, which is in that sort of milk sector there. Sort of a few stocks I've been looking at in that same area. The thing I like about it is we have sort of broken above one or two little swing highs, so that's kind of encouraging there. It's a bit of a lightly traded stock, but yeah, somewhat constructive there. I just when I sort of grew that to the weekly, I did sort of notice that we've sort of got a low in place, a high low, now another high low as well. So it's sort of possibly sort of building something there. So I actually didn't mind the look of that as well. So just sort of so a few stocks in that sector sort of popped up. And the last one there was ERA. So been talking about, I know you've had a few uranium shares, a few clients talking about this, and quite a few. But this is a nice type, I guess you might refer to this as a VCP pattern, but it's really sort of gone sideways in here. The only thing which hasn't happened yet, Chris, is we haven't seen this breaker a swing high yet. So basically sort of lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. So we still haven't gone through. Volumes are still pretty light here, but we do know that when we get these sort of tight sort of sideways patterns there. At some point, they often sort of resolve themselves by sort of breaking out. So we don't have a break here yet, but it's just interesting that this whole move is really set on top of the previous high as well. Interesting sector in terms of what's happening in the market. So definitely sort of one to keep an eye on there. But yeah, there was no real sector sort of specific sort of theme there. A lot of those sort of pops in the market, the 1 weeks, are probably, some of them are sort of on, a lot of them on light volume, so just probably more of a counter move. But there's a few in there with volume there. As we sort of said, you're really going to be looking at the volumes there. So yeah, I'd just be looking at that. So but yeah, I do think, without trying to be biased here, I think market might be under pressure here for the next quarter. So really important to sort of choose wisely here for the next quarter.
That's a good insight to have. As you say, that overarching theme of the market can be critical. It's one thing to find a great trade and everything looks great for the stock itself, but if the industry and the overall market are not behaving as well, does that kind of depress the odds of the trade meeting target?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've sort of found that I've seen a few signals there recently, and I've probably taken a couple of those in sort of sectors that I thought, oh, I don't really know why this sector might be running. There's nothing sort of too hot going on in there, but the chart looks really good. And then I've sort of gone in there, had a pretty tight stop, maybe got stopped out there. Whereas some of the other sort of sectors, you sort of think, okay, well, this sector's really warm, really, it's obviously very topical and everyone's following it. And then the chart's set up and then you trade those and then they move really quickly. So it's sort of like, okay, it's a lot to be said for sort of, matching the technicals and the fundamentals, or at least sort of matching the technicals and the momentum, as we're sort of, as you're sort of highlighting here. And, I think some of the data that you've shown here, we've shown, maybe not all the viewers there, but, if we're going through our lists of sort of who's been moving over the last, the last few weeks, the last months and stuff there, and go back and see, quite a few of those have really followed through. So even though they might look like they've popped here and maybe moved too far, the reality is a lot of them have sort of kept going, as we know. So so I think you and I are both starting to understand and agree that sort of, the stocks that do get momentum, they often do continue to kick momentum, and they go a lot further than you think as well. So it's a bit like, I'm sort of been talking about bear market rallies, how in the past they've been quite short and sharp and powerful, and a lot more powerful than you think. And even when they occur, you might take your breath away, but they're not doing anything different in the past, but they still you still quite find them, it's still interesting to sort of know that. So it's the same with momentum stocks here. They just, they just continue to sort of keep going all the time. So it's, it's definitely interesting to sort of to do this process every week and sort of look back weeks in the past and sort of see that some of the stocks have just continued to sort of still keep going. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it's, William O'Neill and Mark Minervini have both marked that sort of some monster stocks, and those great leaders can just keep powering. But as you're servicing those LaunchPad stocks, finding 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks later, they've made their way onto the high momentum list and they're leading the market.
Yeah.
But they do start somewhere, and that chart you've got on screen there, ERA, that's kind of a good example of a good compression that then leads to a moonshot, a big rally.
Yeah. Particularly if you can kind of combine that sort of strong momentum, then have a consolidation period, and then break through again. That's really the holy grail. That's what you're looking for in it. So stocks, sectors are in play, bullish momentum, then a bit of a pause in a trend, nice contraction, and then you see your light volume sort of dry up, and then the trigger, technical trigger or fundamental trigger gets it going again. And that's what we all should be looking for, really. So
well, that's a holy grail combination. So we'll keep looking for those. But thank you for this week's insights, because it's you trawling through the charts that are really picking out the eyes of these things and highlighting to us, look, here's where we've got to look for resistance, or here's where there can be a bit of a trap, or here's where the volume's lacking. So thank you for those insights, Gary.
Thanks, Chris.